Hello, HCC Eagles. Thank you for coming back with us. You guys have been with us like all week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Y'all just keep coming back and we absolutely love it. So I am Ashley Rhodes Watkins. I am the Student Life Coordinator for the Northeast College. We welcome you today to our event. It was for Black History Month and we had to postpone it because of this Houston freeze. So we're bringing Black History Month, Women's History Month. We're bringing all that back together today. So I would like to introduce to you our speaker for today. Her name is Cree Myles, and she goes by pronouns she, her, hers. And she's a literary content creator. She self-identifies as an amplifier, post-apathy imaginer, gentle agitator, celebrator, and awestruck person, among other things. She has collaborated on projects with Center for Fiction, Penguin Random House, Bellatrix, and Book Sparks. Tanihasi, I don't want to mispronounce his name, Mr. Coates, said she gave the best review of his debut novel, The Water Dancer, of all time. She thinks he was being hyperbole, but still. Yes, so without further ado, I would like to introduce to you all our speaker for today, Miss Cree Myles.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I'm super excited to see y'all. A little housekeeping before we jump into it. If anybody want to take their camera off, like if the spirit moves you, it would feel less lonely in here. You feel me? So do with that what you will. But before we get all of the way started and I jump into my presentation, Dominique Brown, my soul sister of life, made a really cool questionnaire that I would like you all to fill out just so I can get a temperature check about like what we talking about when we're talking about the Black canon, like what you know about that. So Damo, can you pull that up real quick? Yeah, so the first question, Black canon aside, I just kind of want to know what type of books that you are into reading. It doesn't matter if the last book you read, because I know you all are students. So if it was like last summer when you had a moment to breathe, whenever, just if you can let us know what it was, and then I'll know what kind of taste we're looking at. Chokehold. Who wrote Chokehold, Barbara? The Street Lawyer. All right. Americana, period. Would it be easier for you all to answer The Coldest Winter Ever? Did you know that the prequel came out in January? I heard it's not good, but I still think it would be worth it. I loved Americana. I read it a few years ago. Chimamanda is brilliant. Are we good? I mean, if it's easier for you all to use the chat versus the Menti, the Menti would be fun to look at, but it's up to you. Can we go to the next one, Damo? I think like 6-7 people answered. Thank you. Paul Butler, awesome. More Than 3, beautiful. I could tell, Jana, when you were seeing the books and getting excited, I got real big bibliophile vibes from you. Awesome. This is exciting. Yeah, because I just want to know, am I preaching to the choir or am I trying to drag people along in this presentation? You know, it's always good to know. Awesome. I suppose that's why you would come. I've only read one book by Stephen King called Thinner. And he wrote it under his pen name. Fun fact, because his editor said he was writing too many books, he was saturating the market, so they gave him a pen name to use, but he still kept writing the same amount of books, which is ridiculous. This is awesome. Awesome. I love that it's historical fiction. Okay, can we go to the next one, Damo? Yeah, I just want to know if you read it, if you prefer it. Since you all are typing in the chat, period. We can even get a little more specific. Are you a sci-fi bae? Are you a historical fiction, realistic fiction? Do you read young adult? mysteries, because somebody said Stephen King. So are you a horror bae? What is it? I realized that you'll learn this about me in the presentation, that I am very much, I'm the canon. I love me some, okay, romance. I forgot about romance. I read my first romance novel last year, and there's no turning back. I didn't put it down. I felt so ridiculous, but it was beautiful. What was it called? If I Had Never Met You or something. I too love science fiction. Octavia Butler, N.K. Jemisin, On the Period. I don't know who Danielle Steele is. What did I read as a teenager? You'll find out in the preds. Okay. Can we do the next one? Little bit of trivia. So, who wrote Beloved? Audrey or Tony? Two for Tony. If y'all are taking a minute to reply because you are Googling, I can't be mad. Three for Tony. Yeah. All right. We can do the next one, Damo. Who wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God? Zora Neale Hurston or Alice Walker? Zora. This is so fun. Look, I should have known if you signed up for this presentation that you read books and liked them and loved them. So this is about to be, we're just going to be in church for a minute because I'm not about to have to convince anybody of anything. Yes, and the first one was Toni Morrison. That's the book that she won the Nobel Prize for Literature in. I think it was published in 84, 85. And Zora wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God. It's fun that I paired these two together because I didn't pair them together on purpose. But if you don't know, people didn't know about Zora Neale Hurston until Alice Walker wrote about her. And then there was this huge resurgence of her work, and Their Eyes Were Watching God just floated to the top. And baby, that book puts me on my knees every time. It's so beautiful. Okay, next question. Yes, Sister Outsider. Audrey. Audrey. Yeah, it is Audrey. Which that book, full transparency, is nonfiction, but still crucial. Okay, is that the last question? Awesome. Then yeah, I can take the screen over. Thanks, Dominique. Okay, so full transparency, I made this super cool Canva presentation with lots of GIFs and videos, but then I found out downloading it that if you want to have access to the GIFs and videos, you have to like push it into this like 2-minute thing. So just so you all know, I'm gonna have to stop and start, which wasn't my intention because I wanted things moving on the screen as I was talking. But here we are. I am nothing if not flexible, but I'm extremely excited to be here, you all. I I could talk about Black books until I just keeled over and like lost my voice. So to have this opportunity to do this is phenomenal. I'm so thankful to be invited. And but there's also something kind of daunting and nerve-wracking about having to use words to talk about people who used words the best, you know? So I also am a little nervous, but I'm looking forward to doing this. And I'm glad there are so many bibliophiles here with us. It's going to be fun. So something that I've made a practice of doing before I dive into a topic is a land acknowledgement. I'm currently on the stolen land of the Peoria, Sioux, and Potawatomi nations. And I always try to do a land acknowledgement just to reclaim the narrative that's given to us by the white patriarchal society, society that our land, this was not our land first. And although this is a conversation about Black fiction and the importance of it, and that's the lens that I function out of as a Black diaspora cisgendered woman, I do believe that it is my job and our jobs at large to speak nearby other people's experiences whenever we are called to. And so I think that whenever we gather in a space, it's important to acknowledge whose land we are on. So if anybody by chance knows the stolen land that you are currently on, feel free to type that in the chat, and so that we can acknowledge it. Okay. Okay, last question before I start talking about myself for Rizil. I'm always curious about what molded you in your formative years. Someone mentioned the Harlequin novels, and when I was sitting here putting this together, I was thinking about the books that, like, if I just had to name 4 books through my youth that I was like, oh, this is what made Cree. These are the 4 that came up. And it's so interesting about how not Black they are, but I remember all of them distinctly. I did not lose sleep. I mean, I lost sleep after The Girl Who Cried Monster. I lost sleep after Look for Me by Moonlight, like big time. And then I read about it like a few years ago, and I feel like it might have even low-key been a little too mature for me. And love me some Sweet Valley High and Babysitter's Club on period. And What Happened to Lonnie Garber really helped speak to me identity-wise. I got bullied as a middle schooler about like policing my Blackness, like how I acted as a Black person, or was I Black enough? And that book was really pivotal in me realizing that you don't have to perform something that you already are. So it just made me, it inspired me to show up with way more courage and to still show up as my full self. So I already see things in the chat popping up. Let me see. Where did it go? Oops. Here we go. Yes, Goosebumps and Babysitter's Club, Mr. Mike, Babysitter's Club. Yeah, I low-key, I know why the Cage Bros sing. I didn't read that till I was an adult. Red Fern was so sad. Wasn't that about those 2 dogs? That was crazy. Do y'all remember the Goosebumps like fan club that only existed for like 3 years? You know what I'm talking about? At the end of the book, you could like sign up for it. Sounder was so sad as well. West Side Stories, I didn't even know that was a book. Oh, West Side Stories from Wayside School. That Wayside Stories from Wayside School, is that what you're talking about? Actually, yes, you feel me? And I was in that club, and it only lasted for like 2 years, but you got all types of swag, and I felt very abundant. We were dating ourselves together, Ashley. It's all right. Watson Go to Birmingham. I didn't read that till I was an adult either. Isn't that shameful? My library was in the city too. Thank y'all. Okay. So about me, I put this together and it looks chaotic because my life is chaotic. First off, if you look to the right of the screen, those are the people that I live with in that little corner. The little one is my Taurus, Nathaniel. He turns 2 next month and he takes up space just like a Taurus. And the middle turns 11 at the beginning of next month. April is a very emotional month for me. And he's my Aries and he shows up just like an Aries. And then my partner, my husband, who I do all of these things with, is up in that other corner. That's Brian. That's us on a beach in Aruba pretending like we didn't have children. And then the left-hand corner is, look, my middle child loves animals and I try to think outside the box because that's what fiction tells us to do. And so during the pandemic, I let him acquire these reptiles and I don't regret it yet. A little bit I do with the python because of what he eats. But other than that, there is a baby ball python at my house. He's 7 months old. His name is Zuko. There is a North American gray tree frog in my house named Misty. Fun fact, tree frogs chirp. They don't ribbit and they actually do it in the middle of the night very loudly. We're working through it. And then my favorite is Alex, the baby bearded dragon. She's like 8 months and I enjoy all of them. And my pronouns are she, her. And my background is actually, my degree was in organizing. I'm not a comparative lit person. I'm not an English major. I've always been about and will always be about the revolution. And I just show you all of this to signify that I have a lot to do and I still fit in books, but y'all do too. So I'm glad that we're all on the same page about how important it is and you got to make time to do it. But to touch a little bit more on my background, I really think that informs the way that I approach literature and that I'm not doing like a critical analysis of voice or plot or structure. I'm always about like, how will consuming this piece of art make me my best self? And when I started reading as an adult, like after I got out of college, I was really trying to figure out big questions like, okay, I got this degree, I'm supposed to organize people and get to like change systematic problems. But how do you really get people to change? And how do you get them to be their most vulnerable selves? How do you get them to be honest? How do you get them to be brave? And so I just started reading for myself to figure out like the answers to these big questions. And so that's kind of the theme of all of this, like my journey towards the books that I fell in love with and why I just think they're good for everyone. I'm gonna stop and look at the chat real quick because I see it. Why doesn't I see it when it pops up? There we go. Thank you. Yes, the reptiles are an adventure. Thank you to this avatar. I take all my pictures myself with my camera. You'll find out about my book influencing in a minute. My bearded dragon, she's not fancy. She just shed last week and I think she's gonna have some orange undertone, but mostly she's just like a tan and brown. I really like her. Bearded dragons have way more personality than I ever would have thought a lizard could have. Oh my God, yes, my 11-year-old, I love him so much. And he has a lot of books in the house. He's always in the middle of a book because I require that. And this summer he read the Stamped Remix by Ibram X. Kendi and Jason Reynolds. He wasn't crazy about that. He did like this reptile analogy that Jason gave in the beginning, that racism went from being a dinosaur to a crocodile. That's like the thing that stuck with him because I've heard him say it so many times. But mostly he loves Goosebumps. He loves manga. I think that's like anime comics. And so those are the type of things that he's reading right now. I'm very, very liberal in my approach to books, like pick up whatever you want and whatever the topics are, we'll just work through them. But if it's interesting to you, I'm not going to stifle you. See, that's the thing that would have been moving this whole time. Okay, so like I said, I am not here because I am an English lit extraordinaire. I'm here because mostly I'm a Bookstore Grammar. I'm gonna let this video play. This is my Instagram. And so I'm silly on it and sometimes use adult language, but it's still funny. And I'm gonna let this video play and then I'll keep talking.
Word of the week, it's the word of the week, it's the word of the week, it's the word of the week. These are the books I read so far this year. Sis literally got a whole Nobel Prize. Why haven't you read it yet? Well, Milkman was a bitch-ass nigga. Hate to see it, but the story's great. Ocean wrote the mess out of this with his poetic ass.
Okay, so oops. I knew that was gonna happen. So I'm a Bookstore Grammar, and we're basically just literary content creators. Like, you know, there is a whole community of like makeup influencers, and there's a community of lifestyle influencers. There are hundreds, thousands of us who dedicate our social media pages to uplifting literature that we love. And I always wonder if other niche communities are as like involved as we are, because we love each other so much. And I don't know how we would have gotten through the pandemic without each other. We send each other books and like merchandise, and like there's always someone to talk to when you go through a book and you're like, what did I just experience? And that's actually how I got here, is because I read Toni Morrison's Bluest Eye. And I just remember I read the last page and I just laid down and put the book on my chest and was like, what just happened to me? Like, what did I just experience? And I needed somebody to talk about it, and nobody in my like immediate like family or friend group had like read the book. So I went to the internet to talk about the book. And I decided to make a video instead of write a review, because I had kind of been writing reviews before and it wasn't really picking up traction. And I know a lot of Bookstore Grammars come into the space because they are readers already and they want to talk with other readers about the books that they're reading. And I realized one of my lenses that kind of differ than some of my colleagues in that space is that my goal is always to get the person who would never read the book to read it, because I have Audrey Lorde and Toni Morrison and Whitney Houston in that blob, because they are all artistic cultural icons. And if you say the name Toni Morrison, I found out only 50% of United States Americans know who Toni Morrison is. And then for the other 50%, a lot of times, like us aside, because like I said, I'm preaching to the choir today, which is very wonderful. A lot of people might hear her name and know that she won all of these really prestigious accolades. And so the things that she creates is probably too dense, too esoteric, too elite, too academic to like touch the general public. But like my life, like what I want in this world, like when I'm dead and people look up my Wikipedia page, is like she made books pop culture, because Toni Morrison and her stories are as beautiful and relatable as Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You. And I just want everybody who doesn't know that to know it already. And then to the left is my like flex of life. I did a book, a readathon with Penguin Random House at the beginning of the year, and Bellatrix, and Out of Print, and we raised money for the Center for Fiction. We were having people read Toni Morrison. She is the GOAT forever. And at the end of the readathon, I wanted to have like a 3-hour live party on Penguin Random House's page, and I asked Ta-Nehisi, the National Book Award bestselling author of Between the World and Me, to come and talk to me just for a little bit, because Toni Morrison loved him. And he stopped by and I had a heart attack, and it was wonderful. But yeah, that's why I am here, because I love books like this, not in an academic way at all. Oh, we have to watch this again. And okay. So just to give you a little bit about my journey, hold on, I want to check the chat again. Awesome, thank you guys. Oh no, we're still running. Okay, just to tell you a little bit about like my adult reading journey. So I told you my big questions were around bravery, courage, vulnerability. I really believe in vulnerability. And I was like, how do we get more people to unpack that stuff? And so I think I had internalized this belief that if you are going to start reading as an adult and you want to be taken seriously as a reader, you have to read this super dense academic, like nonfiction about these really specific, exhausting topics in order to like prove that you are really a reader. So these are literally the first 3 books that I picked up after I got out of college, except for Angela Davis's autobiography. And I could not finish Changing Minds. I love Howard though. Like I will watch him on YouTube. He be spitting. But Emotional Intelligence and Birthing a Slave, I finished both of them. But it's like, when you're reading a book that's like hard to put in your brain, so you're like reading the words out loud so that you're making sure you're paying attention to what you're reading. I did that for like 1,000 pages total because both those books long than a mug. And I was like, there's gotta be a better way. And plus I was gaining a whole bunch of amazing knowledge. Birthing a Slave, I found out Marion Sims, who was the founding father of gynecology, like there was a statue of him in New York City. He was a slaveholder in the South. And so the reason he was able to get all of his findings is because he was experimenting on enslaved women. Like that's wild. And I know that because of this book, but still I wasn't getting the type of knowledge that I really, really wanted to gain as a person, to become braver and bolder and more vulnerable and to just like get into the insides of like who I am, So I tried some other things. This is where I landed. I told you what Bluest Eye did to me. Sister Outsider, I say to anyone who will listen, I don't care what you say, that is holy text, and she is spitting psalms. And Octavia Butler, I sit and think, like it lives in my head rent free that she just knew she was going to write sci-fi, despite the fact that she had never really seen anyone write sci-fi before, And I guess like the conclusion that I'm at right now at 31, that I hope keeps shifting and changing, because as we learn things, we should shift and change our opinions, is that truly the only way to have a revolution is you just have to be it. Like I can't go knocking on other people's doors trying to convince them to do a thing, because nobody has ever really done anything out of shame or coercion. And if they haven't done it for the right reasons. So how do you get people to be braver? You show up brave. How do you get people to be more vulnerable? You practice vulnerability. And as I'm like working through living in these truths, I have nobody to thank except these women who wrote these books. And that's why I just always want to yell it from the rooftop, like, everybody read them. Everybody read The Bluest Eye. Everybody read Wild Seed or anything by Octavia Butler. And Sister Outsider, I heard you need to read The Cancer Diaries by Audrey Rodriguez too. I haven't gotten there yet, but that's kind of been my conclusion as I have been going on this journey. I'm checking the chat once more. Thank you, Ashley. I know, yes. I love that GIF. And so part of my beef with nonfiction, and I think I touch on this a little later too, so you might hear me repeat myself, or we might move past it, is it doesn't challenge you to do any internal work as a human. So like this summer with all of the racial uprising and protest, and y'all, the reason I got 20,000 followers, in part, ridiculously enough, is because of George Floyd's passing. Like, people were looking for answers. What books are these Black people on the internet telling us to read? And books like How to Be Anti-Racist were flying off the shelf. White Fragility were flying off the shelf. Ta-Nehisi's Between the World and Me was flying off the shelf. And for the record, I'm not really talking memoirs, because memoirs are stories. They're people's personal stories. So, but like the how-tos, when people are looking at these really big, systematic, insidious issues, and they're like, they just want a simple manual on how to undo it, it's not the move, because it allows you the privilege of stepping away from the problem when you're done reading about it, versus when you're reading a story, you in it. Like, you're in the place with the person experiencing the pain. And I think that's really important if we are really serious about growing our empathy and our imaginations as humans. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Yes, okay. So the other part I want to touch on as I delve into my empathy spiel is the human imagination. Like, could we just give it up for a minute? Because sometimes I sit in a room and think about all of the things that I lay eyes on did not exist before a human thought of it and then turned it into a thing. And we're the only ones on the planet that do that. And it's amazing. It's a superpower. And as children, we are so encouraged, especially when we're in the right environment and we are in a stable environment, to just run with that. Like I had the safety and privilege as a child of just being able to live in my brain for hours at a time. And I distinctly remember it. My mom would have to come and remind me to eat because I would just be outside playing with my doll. Or I had one of those like rugs that was also a house, like a doll house, and I would just be in my room for hours, just these intense stories just coming out of my brain, just exploring them. And I think one of the ways that we do ourselves a disservice as a society is we don't prioritize that in adulthood. We just think it doesn't matter anymore. But our imagination is with us our whole life, and it's super important to cultivate it our whole entire life. And one of the easiest, most accessible ways to do that is to read novels and fiction. And so that's another really important reason why we have to be picking up these books. And imagination and empathy, I should just full screen this. Yeah, imagination and empathy are, I found this out during research for this presentation. Neuroscientists have discovered that they're actually very close to each other in the brain. And so the more you use your imagination, the more capacity for empathy you have. So it literally is like all of the answers people were looking for around everything that happened last summer. And that's just been happening in our society for centuries. It can be tapped by reading books. And another part is if you're only reading nonfiction about subjects that don't necessarily affect you, it's almost like you don't even see though the different type of people or the different type of experiences in your imagination. They don't even exist. And that is subconsciously upholding all of the oppressive systems that you were putting in work to dismantle in the first place. So another reason, I should be keeping track of my list, like the number of reasons I've given people to read fiction. This is because it's true. So yeah, as I was putting together this presentation, I was really trying to come up with the language of what I knew to be true based on what books had done to me. And so I put out a poll on my Instagram, and somebody hit me with this quote, and I loved it so much I could not include it in this presentation. But fiction gives us empathy. It puts us inside the minds of other people, gives us the gifts of seeing the world through their eyes. Fiction is the lie that tells us true things over and over. And I just think about like what Bluest Eye did to me and how that's a completely fictional story. Tony just made it up, but I had never seen myself so clearly as when I read that book, and all of the ways that Tony just like, here you are, here is the Black girl, here are the experiences, here's that little thing that you thought you were the only one experiencing, but you aren't because I'm writing about it. And that book was published in like 79 and still hit that hard. It's so beautiful. And I'm just thankful that we have writers and books in the world to give us that. Also, I'm glad I looked at my notes. Another reason why I think literature is so important as an art form, because I think all art is important, but literature is the only one that gives you direct access to somebody's brain. So like if you're watching a film, if someone wants to explain why they did something, there might be some sweeping monologue or soliloquy, but the only time you get real-time unpacking of what's happening in someone's brain as to why they did it is when you're reading a novel. And we need more access to our brains because the society has taught us to communicate like 3-year-olds. So the better we get at trying to understand each other, the better off we'll be. And so I think that's also reason number 500, we should read more fiction. Okay, so, the other reason, so when we're talking specifically about BIPOC fiction, 2 reasons why that's crucial. And one is if you are BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, person of color, if you are a BIPOC person, you just never get to see yourself as the main character. You're always the homie, the best friend, the whatever way that society has pushed us into this tiny stereotypical box, and that's what we have to exist in, even in people's imaginations on a page. But when you're reading BIPOC fiction, you get to be the lead of the story, and you get to see yourself in all of your nuance and all of your harm and beauty and the yes ands of life. And that's just really important to like self-affirm that you exist and you're important. And if you're not BIPOC, it's one of the closest ways that you can get to walking in somebody's shoes. So that it's important for both reasons. And this was the slide I was talking about when people were looking for answers after George Floyd's death and they were picking up how to be anti-racist. And that's not how this works at all, as we know. And I can say, even as a Black woman, a BIPOC person, I'm only a Black woman. I'm not a Korean American. I'm not Ecuadorian. And so when I read books by BIPOC people from a different identity, I get gobsmacked across the face because everyone's lived experience, they're going to tap on something that you have just never even considered. And it's so important to know that, like the gentle reminders that we don't know everything and that every single person that you see has lived an entire life. That, like, trying to keep that at the center of our minds as we navigate the world would really help us be better humans, I think. So that brings me here because after the mass shooting in Atlanta, Lisa put these tweets out, and at first I had an attitude because, as you can see, I love me some books. I'm very passionate about them. And I was like, what do you mean diverse reading is not going to dismantle white supremacy? But then, as I got quiet and thought about it, it definitely became a yes and for me, because books are going to help. Building empathy and building courage are going to help. But however you approach your life and whatever lens you exist through, that's not magically going to disappear when you pick up a book. So if you are a hypercritical person, if you are generally unhopeful, if you are generally unhappy, that's how you gonna read. So, I mean, as far as being the revolution, do you feel it coming? Because I'm about to say, we all gotta go to therapy. That's first and foremost. We all need to eat really good food that's good for our bodies. We have to get outside. We have to lean into the discomforts and be comfortable with that. We have to have people who love on us unconditionally. And books are just an aspect of that. They're an important aspect to me, but it's not a magic pill. So that was my takeaway from Lisa. But I can totally see what she's saying. Okay, so first off, all of y'all are bibliophiles, so you don't need to know this. But for anybody out there who's trying to get started in this reading life, gang, and doesn't know where to start, one, I would just be read a book a month. When I first started, I'm going to commit myself to being a regular reader. I would start a book on a certain day, see and then just know I'm going to finish it 30 days from then, divide the pages by 30 and just make sure I got through those pages. Our world is really committed to distracting us. So literally my 11-year-old, he was 6 at the time, I would just give him my phone and I would be hide it and give it back to me in an hour. And he loved doing that. So that's totally an option. And then it got to the point where I enjoyed the books that I was reading so much that after he went to sleep, I would pick them up again with my phone right next to me and be perfectly fine. And then for book recs, like I said, the Bookstore Grammar community runs deep and we are fun. These are the homies, some of the homies. There's tons of homies, but Books to Henny is hilarious and an English major by trade. So he gives super analytical reviews. Read by Rock Kelly makes Books to Henny's analytical look like child's play because Rod is all about we don't read the same books, and like he'll tell you that and twist his head, and he hates new releases. He's backlist or nothing. And Coco is my homie. She is like normalized luxury for blackwomen.com. She is an engineer. She wears thigh highs and she loves Angela Davis. So that's on period. And then the only way to start is to start just look up, like go to the Bookstagram, go to YouTube. If you don't have a Bookstagram, there's Booktubers. Try a few books and then see what's happening. And I know y'all are in school right now, so it might make more sense to do it in the summer if you have more time. And then my other, like, I swear by it, some people push through when they don't like a book, but not Cree. If you don't like it, this is not school. Do not put it away and try something else because there's something there for you. And if you're continuing to read the book you don't like, it's just getting in the way of the book you might love, you know? So I think this is my last slide. Is it? Yes. Oh my goodness. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Does anybody have any questions or feedback or anything? I'd love to keep talking about this if anybody's interested. How do I feel about Audible? Yes. I mean, I feel like it would be extremely ableist for people to be like, oh, audiobooks are not real books. So that I think sometimes that's the only way people can access books. And so I'm all about it. I struggle with listening to a book, like struggle. But I've been trying to get better at it. But I also can say, I think a lot of people that I'm in community with, like on Bookstagram, are all about numbers. Like I'm trying to read 100 books. Like last year, somebody literally read like 20 books in a month because we were in the pandemic. And I was like, oh, not Cree. Like if I read a book and it's the bomb, I'm just gonna like put it down and then look at it for like a few weeks. I remember when I read that, it was so beautiful. So some people I know just listen to audibles to keep their pace for their book goals, but I'm not the one, but I totally endorse them. Oh, yes. Oh my God, yes. Okay, so yes, Dominique, thank you. That's my Instagram. And I mean, did you say I'm open to all Black fiction? So Naomi, are you thinking, do you want like old school, like Tony and Alice? Or are you thinking like more today? Like, do you want some people who are alive and also on Instagram? Because the authors talk to you. Yeah, and I'll also put my email in the chat as well if anyone wants to reach out to me that way. I miss things on Instagram sometimes. Yes, those are both, yeah. See, my backlist regarding men is not as strong as it should be. I'm working on it though. I'm purposely reading some James Baldwin this year. Okay, I'm gonna assume, Naomi, you meant contemporary writers, and I'm just gonna go in right now. I might have spelled Chimamanda's name wrong. Hold on, there are more. Oh my gosh, Jasmine Mans. She just came out with this beautiful collection of poetry and is literally being compared to Gwendolyn Brooks. I'm sorry, can't take it. Oh my gosh. Jasmine Ward. Jasmine, yes. Today, reader today, right now. Oh. I did not like that book. Oh, yes. Yeah. Yazzie. Well, Naomi, so super cool. So Zora Magazine dropped a Zora canon, and it's 100 books that you have to read by Black women. And it's the bomb because it's temporary. I just thought of more, but it's also backlist as well. Okay, best book I ever read. Bluest Eye is one of them. And then I love Ursula K. Le Guin, who is a white woman. She just passed in 2019. She was in her 80s or 90s. And she was a sci-fi writer, and she was so extraordinary. So she wrote a book called The Dispossessed that I read in college, my senior year of college. I was completely tired of college, and I had an independent study, and I told my professor, please do not give me any bull. I need something real to do, because otherwise my body won't allow me to do it. And he gave me The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin, and it changed my life. So that one and Bluest Eye, I think those are always the ones that I say, but like Color Purple had me in tears. Their Eyes Were Watching God had me in tears. She didn't have to dress like grief because she looked like grief, period. Oh, no problem. So, yeah, those two are the ones that I love. I mean, yes, Alice Walker and Zora Neale Hurston, June Jordan, Sonia Sanchez. These are backlist now. Mahogany is frontlist. Tiffany Jackson. I'm always gonna miss someone. Oh, Gwendolyn Brooks. Does anybody have any other questions? Yes, Gloria. And Colson, I'm afraid that I won't sleep if I read The Nickel Boys, because I've heard things. This has been so fun. Low key, y'all need to start your own bookstagrams. Let's do that. Let's talk about that. You all should all become literary content creators yourself, so you can join in the fun. It's a really great community. So I haven't read the poem. I watched her perform it at the inauguration, and I'm glad that she's getting all of her flowers. I have this like thing that I need to unpack, that like the most radical writers never get invited to events like the inauguration. And then I have this thing that I need to unpack, that I think maybe the most radical writers are the bestest writers, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily true. And because I'm a Libra, the wishy-washy is real. So I'm all about the yes and. Like, you can be extremely radical, but still figure out a way to navigate such a ritualized, archaic space. I think that's probably possible. And if I'm a poet and they ask me to speak at the inauguration, and it's like a president that I don't want to throw hands, even though we kind of always do, I'm gonna do it. So I get it.
Right, everyone. It doesn't seem like we have any other questions. So we're gonna go ahead and conclude. Cree, we just want to thank you so much for coming and providing this information to our students, and just being open and having a healthy discussion around these books. Thank you for your suggestions. for my HEC Eagles, if you guys are here, and this is an event that qualifies for Eagle Points, so please don't forget to check that out. And Eagle Points will be available at least 2 days. Give us 2 business days to go back in and enter your attendance so that you can receive those points. And we're gonna go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much again, Miss Cree, and we definitely appreciate you. Have a great day, Eagles.
Bye, y'all.